So there's an article recently on copycat businesses in Latin America and South America. It's called Copycat versus Disruptors, something like that. And it's talking about how they don't have, there's a lot of startups that are English speaking that never made it to that region. So there's a bunch of startups now, and probably startup institutions who are using a model of just ripping it off, similar to Rocket Internet as well.
Yeah, well, we've been reading a lot about them, and we know that, like, if you present a brand new idea to an investor, 99% of the time they're going to look at you like, where have you come from?
Yes.
Like Airbnb got shut down for 5 years before they got any traction, and if you're the disruptor in the industry, you're just going to you're like pushing shit uphill, actually.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can reflect on something that is working somewhere else in the world, you've immediately got a business model that's viable.
It's a great example of how unfair the world truly is that the disruptors, there's also that saying, or some research around how it's often the third big crack, the third highly funded startup within a particular vertical or category will often be the one winner, because the first two spend all of their cash educating the market on why this thing's good. They run out of cash, and the third one comes across the top.
What are we doing then?
Fucks them up. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing at Pitch Lake. They'll probably have them at Pitch Lake. Like Rocket Internet, definitely from Germany, is the best example, right? They're the biggest example in the world of people doing this. So they started off, I can't remember the names of their particular assets, but they got a huge amount of assets.
HelloFresh. Iconic. Foodora.
Yeah, like a bunch of these multi unicorns. And their model is they've got a fund, massive fund.
50% backed by a Swedish family or something?
Yeah, a super rich Swedish family that's like loving this model because it's working pretty well. And the fund is publicly listed now as well. But yeah, he figured it out where he did a complete rip-off of eBay and pushed it again, like these Latin ones, he pushed it to like a third world country somewhere.
Yeah, all the colours were the same.
Yeah,
I think it was like exactly the number of letters and exactly the colours.
Yeah, like the multicoloured logo.
Yeah.
And then they launched it to that other market, and then within 60 days, eBay bought them for, I believe, 50 mil US.
Yes.
Which is fucking good. It's like $1 million a day. It's good salary. They actually tried to do an Airbnb replica.
Yeah.
And they really struggled because of the heavy community aspect that Airbnb has, right? He said that they couldn't make it work because it had this community vibe in it, and that was when Rocket Internet decided to pivot to only doing really pure e-commerce plays. So I think if like founders have a generalized idea that's quite mass market, you need to realize, commoditized, mass market, pretty broad. You have to realize that like there's much bigger fucking boys that are going to be trying that startup than you, and like you're so likely to lose. So entrepreneurs have to like stick to a niche where they've got an unfair advantage or something that flies under the radar a bit, and create a brand and create a community if possible around your startup.
I actually, for a very long time, and maybe still a big part of me, hates them, and like I'd buy from Deliveroo and Uber Eats and like boycott Foodora if I can.
Because of it, yeah.
Because if you just support the people that are copying, then then it doesn't incentivize anyone to be the innovator. And if the stats really become that disgusting that you can never make it on if you're the first person to innovate, and you never make it, then who's going to be that first person, right? Yeah. And do you then only leave it up to like the big corporates that have the money to make some mistakes to do it? They're never going to innovate fast enough, so then the world's never going to change.
Yes.
There's only like that many Elon Musks in the world that are like willing to put everything they've got on the line to create change. I think there's something different about taking it and going to a different country.
Yeah.
So this copycat model around taking something that's happening in the States and then doing it in Latin America, I don't know that there's any. I think that's fine. Like I think that startup would have taken a long time to conquer the States, and then conquer Canada and Australia and all the English-speaking countries would be like first things in their 5-year roadmap. It would have taken forever to get to Latin America and then to localize, right? So I don't know. I actually don't know that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I think the lessons I've learned from Rocket Internet, like I 99% hate them, but 1% respect them, and the 1%'s pretty heavy. I think I say 1% because 5 or 10%.
You don't want to sound like
I don't want to say 5 or 10%, even though it might secretly be 5 or 10%. But the thing I no, it's not 50. It definitely would be max 49. But but the thing I do respect about Rocket Internet, even though they're dicks, is in approach. Like, it's really brutal that they're stealing innovative people's ideas. But the thing that can be learnt from the two things is, one, like, execution. Like, founders are they're great at coming up with ideas, but they're so shit at getting it done, and Rocket Internet has created a factory of getting it done. I think other founders can look at that model. Obviously not everyone can burn 10 million a month, but just that meticulous, like, really treating it heavily commercial from day one, really sprinting. They run probably faster than anyone in the world. They get to, like...
And they're not romantic, because they weren't there to, like, solve the problem.
Yes.
You know, these CEOs were there to, like, make a shitload of money and get out. They weren't there to be romantic about how they were going to solve this food delivery problem. They didn't even really care. You know, when we're talking to super early stage founders, if you see something going well in the States, or you see something going well in Asia, or even in Latin America, like this thing, and you want to copy them, Australia's often not the first cab off the rank in terms of innovation, and it's just not a problem copying a business model that exists, and it's actually much easier to get an investor.
Yes, yeah, it's a real shame as well that, you know, entrepreneurs are so scared of people stealing their ideas, and things like this obviously highlight that it does happen sometimes. But I think it's important for people to understand that there's so many winners in the space as well. I think there's just this perception that there's winner take all. We were just talking about food. Like, there's four options in Brisbane alone, and they're massive ones. But so I think even though there's these giants like stealing ideas, and even in China, like, people looking on crowdfunding campaigns as their job to, like, steal hardware and physical product. Yeah, it's a real problem. But most of the time they only focus on mainland China. But I think, again, it's just for the most part, a lot of the time these are really mass market consumer ideas at big multi-billion-dollar plays. So
yeah, that once you take it out of the box, like, who cares where you got it from?
Exactly. So founders just got to be careful that they don't go for stuff that's too generic. Yeah. Or, of course, you put yourself at risk of the amount of ideas that we've heard pitched that Facebook or Google could so easily do and have done, usually in most cases already, is crazy. Like, you just got to be, people just got to do weirder shit.
Yeah, or, like, find a really weird niche that a Google or Facebook isn't interested in being just for them.
Yeah, and just owning that space. And that's not something that the big platforms or big product companies are going to focus on in the near future.
I think Google's the best example.
Totally.
They started, like, 3 years after Yahoo or something. Or 2 years after Yahoo.
Yeah, Google wasn't first to the party, Facebook wasn't first to the party. None of these were. In a way, everything is stolen. It's just what percent you
Exactly.
stole.
Adapted.
Yeah.
Adapted.
Borrowed.